Shalom, good to be here.
Nice to hear your voice, Felipe. Good morning, Fernando.
Yeah,
Shalom, Eti. Good morning,
Shalom.
friends. Good to hear you, Eti. How are you doing?
Fine, fine. The weather here is fine. Clouds are coming to visit, which gives us relief a bit, which is really pleasant at the moment. Thank you for asking.
Great.
And Rodrigo,
Good
can
to
we hear you this morning?
Good morning, Auntie. Shalom, everybody. It's very nice to be here. I'm very happy and I'm ready to talk with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an effort to all of us, as I discovered, to be in the right time, in the right place. And I would like to open today our conversation in a new topic. Maybe we have heard about it, maybe we read about it, maybe somehow we saw a word that is referring to what we're going to open now. It is about the literature of Heichalot. Heichalot are palaces. And now, today, I would like to open the topic of palaces literature. Have you heard this term before? Heichalot or palaces literature? Did you hear the term? Have you somewhere um, ran into it, or it's the first time that you hear it?
Not specifically palace literature.
Not specifically. Fernando, did you hear the term
Yeah.
Heichalot? Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell us a
Uh,
bit of what you have read?
yes. It is a very interesting topic because it is very related with the mystical experience. I think, Eti, you can correct me, but the idea is that uh, is the different places of the ascending. It is the different palaces that the divine essence bits, let's say, and one could, one could visit each one of these palaces and ascend to heaven. That is the final palace, let's say. And it's interesting because is literature. It is a kind of literature, right? It is a
Yes,
kind of
yes,
approach.
yes.
Uh, it it came through time. Um, many mystical persons wrote about the Heihalot, not only in Jewish experience, but also even in the Sufi experience and in the Christian experience as well. We can find some references to this, uh, to what is called the Heihalot, right? We have also in the Zohar some
Excellent, excellent.
greetings about.
hmm
So I'm curious to listen to you, Eti.
Yeah, thank you. What is the historical Venus? Good morning. Shalom, shalom. Shalom. What is the historical context of literature of the palaces? What the historical? Did you hear? Can we locate this in time before we open? There is a bit of text from Wikipedia here, but let us look here. There's a map here. There's a map. Who would like to read what is the name of the map? What do we see here? This is a geographical map of what?
Roman Empire in 117.
Anno Domini, yes? Anno Domini is a common era. Anno Domini, after Christ, yes? And here we
Yes.
see, yes. So the question is, why did I bring this map as an opening or historical setup for the literature of the palaces? What is happening here? Who would like to connect? What do we see here?
We see different kingdoms. We see different like different countries, maybe.
Yes. In the middle, yes, very good. In the middle, there is the Mediterranean Sea, and around it, we see the expansion of the Roman Empire. The colors are, in a way, reflecting different kinds of, how would I say, this is imperial provinces, senatorial, and so on. This is not so much important. This is not so much important. What is important is the dimension of the, how do you call it, Makbilit? Lateral, this form, Makbilit, lateral. I don't have this term in English. The dimension of the Roman Empire. It is from here, from Egypt, here, until Mauritania. This is basically the dimension of United States. This is just to give us a concept. And why do I bring this map, and why do I say that there is, in this dimension, it is parallel to the size of the United States of our time? Why do I bring it? Because this is the time, from this time and on in history, the Roman Empire will shrink. The manifested will be concise. And this is what happens few years before, in 70 years, Anno Domini, 70 years, I'll write it here. The first, let's start from the temples, because this literature came into being because the manifested cannot supply the good. I will move now and write a bit about what is happening here. Just a little historical scan that we shall understand why the Roman Empire is visiting here. We have the first temple, one second, the time of Solomon, second, 1,000 years before Christ. This is 10 in the power of 3. This is the first temple. The first temple functions about 400-500 years. Then there is a destruction of the temple. There is a second temple. And there is destruction also in 70 years after Christ. There is destruction of the second temple. The relation to the spirit is being in a way destroyed. There is no temple. Why it is so important to mention the temple? Because when people are walking for the temple, there is a good deed to walk to the temple 3 times per year as pilgrimage. This is some kind of a movement, not just by foot or any kind of vehicle. This is also a movement of the spirit. When the second temple is destroyed, there is no movement of the spirit. People are not congregating anymore. People are scattered. But still, there is a need for the human spirit to revive, to be in connection with the higher. So what used to be external or manifested in the temple, the first or the second, now is being taken in. And people express their relation to the higher, whether it's a dream, a prophecy, a vision, poetry, or liturgia, by writing. They're writing it down, they're communicating it. This is the background, this, let's say, in general, the background of this kind of literature. There is a change in the worldly order. Things that used to be important or existing in a manifested are not existing anymore. This is a parallel process to what we experience nowadays. institutions, states, it doesn't matter for each and every one of us in which state do we live. The state does not matter anymore. What is matter is the connection between people. How do they communicate to each other? How they manage to write to each other and describe their inner worlds, their inner palaces. Do we understand this? Just as an opening.
Yes.
Of course, that was solid opening.
Now, do you
Even
have...
more,
Yes,
yes,
Philip?
yes.
Yes, Philip, please.
Just relating it to states having evolved into what they are as well, obviously came from something before that too. For what we have now came from these came from ones prior, back to a history that we don't have knowledge for at the moment, and the whole structure comes off of that.
Yes. Thank you. Fernando, did you want to say something?
No, I'm following. It is nice what you are saying this about this changing of orientation, like a new era maybe.
Yes,
Because-
yes.
Right.
There's like between us, how do you say? There's a great break in our time. There's a great movement. What I can see as parallel is this movement, like with the rising of Safrut Echalot, the literature of palaces, the inner palaces. And parallel picture also happened in history in the 15th century, 16th century, in the Renaissance. So those are two like different, in a way, historical eras, but the inner expression is similar. Yes.
Eti,
Yes.
if I understand, the Hechalot literature is related to the people's needs and build an inner temple
Yes.
after the destruction of the second temple, right?
Yes. Excellent. The need to be in how do you say, in connection with the Holy Spirit, regardless of the destruction of the physical temple. Excellent, Rodrigo.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Yes.
And Eti,
Yes.
one question. It is interesting because you said about liturgy,
Yes.
and in the first and the second temple, we tend to think that they had a liturgy for the people,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not quite right, this image, because the temple, it was for another things, like the rituals of sacrifice, and the role was for the people of Levi and the Cohen.
Yes.
So it wasn't like we see nowadays what happens in the synagogues or in the church or anywhere. It was another thing, right? People went to the temple taking offerings, taking the first fruits and other things, but they do not have a liturgy maybe for the people. They had music for the people in the first temple, but it was different, quite different, I think, from what we see in our days. And with the fall of the temple, we have this liturgy. We have the start of this liturgy in this new era. And my question is that in the time that we are living now, I can see that this liturgy is falling. It is like it is more than a feeling. This is the statistics shows that the synagogues and the churches and everything are losing its
Yes,
appeal.
yes, the institutional, yeah. The fall of the
Yes.
institutional, yes, thinking. Yes, true. This is true. Yes. Yes, the spirit is not in the walls of the synagogues or in the chapels or in the churches. The churches before the corona, we visited Europe. The churches are empty. I mean, people are visiting the churches in Europe just to learn about architecture or about art, because the chapels, the churches are a beautiful expression of art. Many tourists are coming to take pictures, but it's empty. People do not come to the churches to pray. It's just an empty house. Yes? People are not there. The spirit of people is not there. Maybe as a destination to take picture, but not more than this. You're right. You're right. And as you mentioned, people used to go to the temple to sacrifice. And now, after the second temple is being destroyed, there is no need to sacrifice. I mean, they say there's a conversion. The prayer is in a way a substitute, or comes instead of sacrificing. Physical sacrifice. Instead of going and bring some kind of an animal, what is considered to be sacrifice is a prayer. A prayer that we ask for something. It's like we're trying to get closer, because the meaning of sacrifice in Hebrew is to get closer, to sing. Singing is a prayer, is a form of prayer. Yes, questions, please, or thoughts that you'd like to share.
Yes. So we can see this changing from sacrifice to prayer,
Yes.
right? Or to the word.
Yes, to the word.
To the word.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Because we can see in the churches and in the synagogues the importance of the rabbi speaking,
Yes.
and bringing what means everything, right?
Yes.
So, and my question is, what would be this third element now that we can see that the speaking of the institutional speaking does not make sense anymore,
Yes.
like.
Yes. It is true
Have
what
you
you
ever
say.
think what is coming?
Have I ever think? Yes, can you please repeat?
Yes. Have you ever think what is now the next step to this getting closer to this korban? Because
Yes.
first was sacrifice, then we came to the word about this speech, sometimes long speeches from rabbis and priests and ministers that are losing sense more and more.
Yes. Yes.
And it will be the third element, the third degree,
Is that when people communicating to each other from heart to heart. This is, I mean, in a way today, institutions, governments, synagogues, chapels, rabbis, priests, they're just offline completely. They don't manage to communicate. So, and in a way, and I see this also interestingly with all the process of the college, because the whole college was brought into life because there was no way to communicate. People did not want to be communicated with. So, and now people who are here, whether they participate in listening or writing on Discord or listening on YouTube or so, they are interested. they are interested in the soft strings of the heart and the 7 palaces of the heart. Last 2 days ago I was writing a message on Discord in the 7 kind of voices that Psalms mention, 7 kind of voices, Kol Hashem Al Hamayim, and so on. And those are the 7 voices of the heart, and each and every heart, those are 7 higher palaces that each and every one of us have. Yes, and Safrot Eichalot, or the literature of the palaces, writing and communicating about it. This is a very, very inner experience of people when they come into contact with the Holy Spirit, with the Holy Soul. And as you mentioned, it has to do with the mystic experience. Why mystic? And they call mystic people who are they're breaking every kind of form or a blockage or space and time, because the mystic experience is the one who breaks those walls of concrete and manage to bring something from beyond. And this is Yordei Merkava. This is also called in Hebrew Safrot Heichalot, the literature of Heichalot palaces, and also Merkava, the chariot, because they communicate to each other by writing. What do they see in a dream, in an image, in a vision, in a revelation that they have? And the communication, or the people who describe the experience that they have with the things that the human eye cannot see, like the little princess, that the good things or the important things are concealed from the eye, and they manage with a very articulate language to communicate this to each other by writing. And they leave for us a beautiful literature, and people are copying by hand this literature from century to century to century to century, until this literature arrives and finds a home in the book of Zohar. So it also, and why do I bring this in this point? Because I believe that each and every one of us has some kind of a contact with this holy, thin spirit, invisible spirit. And the important thing is to communicate it, because each and every one of us has his own contact with this, and it's very thin and not visible like a TV screen. It's very personal. It is very important that we communicate this experience to another person. So, and this is why I bring it, because in a way people are, maybe from modesty reasons, maybe from embarrassment reasons, that people will not think that they are like this or like that. Maybe they're even hiding from themselves. This is also can be. They don't tend to speak or to communicate about this experience. It is very important to experience this in an articulated way in writing. This is very important. Why do I speak in experience this in writing? Because in writing, the sovereign mind participate in the process. When we speak by heart, it's different way of communicating, but with writing, the sovereign mind also digs like a coal miner inside of us in the infinite library to look for the right terms, to express the experience that we had or we are having with the holiness. And this is in a way to encourage each and every one of us to pull in, and as much as one can express it, whenever you feel it's the right time for you or the right person to communicate, but to have a contact, a connection with these little babies in us, the cherubim. The cherubim, the cherubim, they call it in English cherubim or cherubim, those angels or those little babies above the ark, cherubim. And from the stem letters or the root letter cherubim, we have Merkava. Merkava, those are the stem root letters here. Kruv, Merkava, Bracha, all of those. So, Yordei Merkava, those are not just descending, Yordei Merkava, not just from descending, but those who, not govern, but those who are like sitting in a chariot, they're in charge, or what is happening. Yordei Merkava, those who are in the moment of the holiness. And in this literature, the main speaker, so to speak, Rabbi Akiva, and under the name Rabbi Akiva, he communicates what does he see. And among one of those books of Hechalot literature, we have Shiur Koma. Shiur Koma is the divine dimensions of the God. Of course, when we read the text, it's like huge dimensions, but everything is coded. I brought here 2 codes, of which I might speak today. I'm not sure that it is fitting, but I would like to hear you.
I've actually got some dots
Yes.
that have just joined, and I think potentially it might even lead to coding. So spirits coming down from dimensions into this reality where we are here. This where we exist now is within dimensions and limits of all sorts of spectrums. The only ones that we're able to tap into at the moment, the obvious ones are smell, see, touch, hear, and taste. The common agreed upon ones, which are within limits and dimensions that are bound by a minimum ish and a maximum ish, but that doesn't mean that they stop there. They continue on further in just those spectrums, but on top of that there's more spectrums than just those senses also, so it expands further than just the senses that we have. Just because we don't have them, that doesn't mean that those spectrums don't exist as well. So these higher dimensions and higher, let's call them frequencies for spectrum's sake, are more than possible as well, and are where more consciousness exists within, and that's to say lower as well. And just a second note also, reading this bottom paragraph of your top picture here, I see it mentions the heavenly ascents of Enoch found among the Dead Sea Scrolls also. I've heard the Book of Jasher mentioned here before. I hope I won't be stepping out of line if I mention the Book of Enoch. In there, it mentions about angels coming down to earth in their angelic form, and for personal interest, they came down against God's will and rebelled. And one of their bigger interests was to mate with the human women of the human form as well, and that came with repercussions that ripple affected down the track also. I don't want to mix some points there from a thought that I was just
Sure.
having, but yeah, as an example.
Yes, this is description in the book of Enoch, describing the forward, how to say, the previous verses to the story of the flood. Yes, which is expressed there.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
believe it even mentions in there that they came or they wanted to teach humans their uh, magical abilities of what they're capable of. So knowledge that they weren't supposed to have was taught during those times as well.
Mm. Thank you. Fernando, Rodrigo, would you like to say something? Felipe?
I just want to mention that I like it a lot from what you said, and that it is an inner palace, and when we speak about it is one experience, and when we write about it, it is a different experience. And you incentivize us to talk about it, because if I understood well, talking about this topic and trying to articulate what we see or what we feel, more it is more what we feel than see, but when we are able to articulate properly this kind of stream, uh, it becomes more and more clear and more intimate. We have more intimacy with this. So it is a kind of development, but an inner development, you know. It is difficult for me to speak it, but what I wish to speak is that when one has an experience, an inner experience, if you do not have a place to talk about it or to write about it, it can steal too much, as like a diamond that is not polished, you know. You
Yes.
need to work on it. So I was just looking at this image and thinking about this importance.
Yes. 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 It is the divine is like always knocking at our door, always there, and in a way asking kindly from us to open the door for her. And the thing is that divinity is around us, within us all the time. And when we open the door for the guest, so we have a partner, and beautiful things can come out of this relationships, and a person can grow, that his growth, spiritual growth, does not harm anybody around him. It's not on the expansion of like real estate. It takes another building and it's on the account of other people. It's not on the account of other people, but opposite. When a person grows with him, people who circles him, they grow with him. So every human being has this sphere around him, but some people do not listen, and what happens is gravity does her part, and gravity engraves everything which is not elevated. So in a way, it's a double portion. It's like the Vav. It's a double portion, a double want to go against gravity, to go with the spirit, to go for a new routine in our life, in our daily life. But it is there, and we just have to make a little, like the scripture said, open for me a little opening, like in the size of a needle head, and I will open you palaces, the chariot, and God knows what can go inside. Just open me a little space, This is what we need, because once there is an opening, a person is in this palace, Heichal, palace, place. In English, there's relations of letters, palace, place. This is an inner space within us that encourages us to grow. And in a way, this conversation of today is, I believe, encouragement for us to grow, for each and every one of us in his or in her way, in his or her dimension, just to not to be ashamed from oneself, because our mechanical, there's always like mechanical activities in our lives. There are always mechanical things to do around us 24/7 and more. But to put it aside for a while and open the door for this guest and let her be with us, and let us be with her or him or it or whatever you call it, name it. Everyone has this connection, and just to be with it and relate to this holiness, relate to those sin moments and sensitive activities inside ourselves, because what they named in this literature of Heichalot as angels, Malach in Hebrew is, and I express it by numbers, Malach is 91 or 90 divided into 2, it's 45. Malach is angel, but it's 90 divided into 2, so we have 45 and 45. Us and the Holy Spirit, tetragrammaton with the filling of letter Aleph is 45. So what is Malach? What is an angel? The cherubim, like little angels. So it's a partnership. So the encouragement is to go with this partnership, which is always available. We just have to give a little consent to it, not to reject, because it's always there. This is because we are living in those, I would not say strange times, but everyone in his country, in his surrounding, in his world, feels those great, giant changes, immense changes. So this is a perfect time to go inside and to communicate.
Eti,
Yes.
it was amazing what you just said. It's me. It's very important to listen this and make a lot of sense to me. But sounds, how can I say, very simple or easy, but in fact, to me, it's not so easy to have this connection with conscience. And this you said we just how can I say, we just be open to escort this guest or this partner to feeling this presence. But it's not so easy to be conscious of this presence. And well, what I try to say is in the way that you said during this meeting, there is a need for a liturgy or something, a ritual to connect, or just a pure heart enough for that, because there is a lot of divergence between the ways of approaching God. Some believe that's enough to follow a book or a ritual or a liturgy, just a form, a mechanical form maybe, and that is enough. Others say that's enough to pray sincerely, a pure heart, doing good deeds. And my question to you, Eti, is what do you think? Um, what is essential for a person to have this connection? How do you get around this inner castle? How to consciously feel this presence? And I don't know if this ascension is only an internal process, or if there is any, how can I say, liturgy to assess these hechalot, like the prophets or the Kohen Gadol
Yes,
did.
it is good, the question.
Understand me, Eti, but I hope you can get something that I said. I don't know.
Yes,
Thank
it's
you.
basically a person, when we come in contact with this divine presence, and as I mentioned, to write what comes out, to let it be, to not to judge what comes, but just to write it down. This is the liturgy that comes from the content. I mean, it's not that we read something. You know, sometimes it also can happen when we read something, but once we come into this intimate relation, music appears, words appearing, music with words, music with rhythm, and let it come. And not to judge it, just host it, and if you can bring it, put it on paper, or if you record yourself singing, let it come. Because this is what is divinity? It's infinite system of communication. And just let it be. A person has a dream. Doesn't matter on which continent state is, he or she has a dream. If you manage to write the symbols, not just to write them down, but to describe to yourself, to a friend, to just to pull it together in writing, it changes the person himself and those around him, whether he communicates to them or not. One person consciousness can elevate communities, or opposite. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, that I believe that I can intellectually, I can understand this process, but living this, it's to me it's a little bit complicated. It's more complicated to put in practice, to live this. Maybe in a few moments of my day I can get it, but most part of the time it's hard to
If I
act.
may, Eddie,
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Please.
Rodrigo, if you give into it and let it escort you, it's larger than you, it's more than you. You're a part of it. It will guide you. I hope that might be a few more words, because it's not that you're controlling it. It knows what's going on outside of you a lot more than what you do, and inside of you a lot more than what you do. So if you're listening to the words that it's saying and the little tugs and the pushes that it's trying to show you, that's everything that you need, that is needed. Overall, it's something that I found in the church. By giving into it is the best line of communication. And I suppose down the long term, it's a bit of a practice thing. So the more you learn the signals that are between you and him, her, it, then your conversation ends up getting better. That's the private conversation between yous, and other people come along every now and then as well, having similar topics. They're the ones that come with similar interests that they're having in their private conversations with them as well. Those are the ones that not only resonate with you, but are sent past your path. That's when things become having a reason. So it's a private conversation, something to practice on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you.
Beautiful. Felipe, Fernando, would you like to say something?
A question, maybe. It
Yeah.
is beautiful everything that you are speaking, and I'm most grateful from this topic, for opening this topic, because it is a topic that is really interesting, and I have the most interest thinking. And I'm kind of thinking that this. So I'm just wondering, these sages that wrote about the palaces, Javier Kiva and others. Um, could we say that they have this intimacy with the hidden, with the darkness of the soul, and could enter more and more in the silence? Uh, and this is why they have this ability to put in words what we can find inside, maybe.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Yes.
So you have a few words on the board here.
Yes. 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 Philippe, would you
Anything
like?
in particular
Yes.
that you felt has been drawn to?
Yeah. Just everything started from reading about this book. One of the books of Safot Echalot is Shiur Koma, the divine dimension. Like people see, like in themselves, the divine dimensions, and they describe it in words. But when people, centuries later, they come and they try to decode uh, what is happening, or what was those words or combinations of letters in Hebrew, they don't find any reason to this combination in Hebrew. In which language they try, like you sit with different specials for codes, they don't find what is the meaning. And I brought here two examples of this is a code language, basically, because they have to, in a way, to write what they experience, but in a hidden way that it will not leak to unwanted, like hands or people who are not, I would say, live intimate life with holiness. So in the book Shiur Koma, Divine Dimensions, they call or they name the right pupil. Pupil is the dark spot in the eye. Pupil, we call it in English? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So they call the right pupil of God in those letters that I will not pronounce them in Hebrew, but I will mark them here on the board. Those are the letters here between the brackets. I will not express them. You could later look into them. They're written in Hebrew letters, but nobody can find any meaning. What happens is when we sum up all of those letters together, we come at the value of 141. 141. Does it say anything to you, this number? Can you relate to it?
It is the going to the multiplicity and returning.
Excellent.
Is the word
Yes.
for and for to one. Yes.
Excellent. This is also if we take the word Ephes, 0 in Hebrew, Ephes, 0. Very good, Fernando. Also gives us 141. What is 0? The infinite is 0. So they want to communicate to us that the right pupil of God, it's not God, it's about any human, yes? The right pupil can communicate to the infinite. Or see. This is the communication that comes. So they're trying, those books are the deep, how do you say, deep levels of codes which are lying there. It depends on the reader and the way he reads and associate and communicate through what is happening. This is just a little example. There's another example here on the left. What is the name of the left pupil? And there's like here, how do you say, a list of letters. This one or this one. And I will not go into it. I just would like to show you one direction of thinking. Those books are books of communication, and for centuries people are searching and reading and trying to understand what those people try to communicate to us. Rabbi Akiva lived about, just to connect between Rabbi Akiva and Philon of Alexandria, because it's very important. Those are the sages of the time. He lived few years after Philon, but he already related like Philon. This is also their time in history. He already read or translated Song of Songs as an allegory, just to give us a dimension of thinking. Rabbi Akiva here is a bit, I would say, first century, Anno Domini. Philon is a bit before. We could say that the parallel, they live in the same time. But please understand the way of their thought. They see all, both of them, what is happening here in our lives as an allegory or reflection to what is happening somewhere beyond our reach. Philon managed to communicate it in his books, in his writings, and also Rabbi Akiva. If it's Rabbi Akiva himself or the writer that took the name of Rabbi Akiva to express and to open those giants' inner palaces, this is another story. This is an issue for the professors or university, not for us. Yes.
Before we talk about this Song of Songs, I just want to share with you regarding these two words with the values 141. if we get the first words, um, begin with Aleph, Zayin, and Dalet,
Mm-hmm.
Aleph, Zayin, and Dalet, we get the value of 37. It is the mist or the havel,
Yes.
and the other word is 104, which is 4 times the tetragrammaton. So I just think that it means uh, the, this mist, this uh, heaven, no?
Mm-hmm.
And God, the number four times, four is the manifest, the material. I just made this connection. I don't know if it
Excellent,
makes
excellent, excellent. Because
sense.
from the infinite, very good, Rodrigo. Because from the infinite, both are coming, the zero and the one. Very good. So the zero would be Hevel or the inner mist, and the 104 is 4 times the tetragrammaton is the line. Yes? Like in computer, we are, what is the language is 1 and 0, 1 and 0. So here we have a combination. Very good, very good.
Just to mention that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I would glad if you could back to the Song of Songs and say something about that because it's a lot of interesting to me and I never heard about this.
There is here a description of the beloved one. This is little time. I would like to expand more, but here there is a description of the beloved one. His cheeks as the bed of spices, and so in Hebrew, lechayav ke'arugot habosem, it's like a row of perfume. The Hebrew says a bit different than the English, but there is a description of cheeks. Usually, when people read this line about chicks, they thought about this is the description of their, like, Romeo and Juliet, and this is Romeo. They say a man that his cheeks is like perfume, row of perfume in the field. But Rabbi Akiva and also Philon see this in a completely different way. They say it's a description of the divine in our eyes, and this is not love relations between a man and wife or Romeo and Juliet. It's basically description of love relations between the divine and human walking on earth. And then the dimension or the distance or the magnetism or the attraction is multiple in its dimension, because the divinity, unlike a man and a woman, which are manifested in time, you can see this is a man, this is a woman, so to speak, attraction, a dance. We cannot see God. Now, if we cannot see God, how can Solomon write this Song of Songs? So, in a way, it multiple the tension between God, they call it the beloved one, or Dudi, God is my uncle. The tension is immense because something that we cannot see. And there is a love relation between the visible, us in time and space, and the invisible. So it would be interesting to read, and this is in a way, Rabbi Akiva took this, this is how the books describe. Rabbi Akiva took this lane and took it out from like perspective that is dependent on space and time, took it out completely to an allegory, to a virtue language like Philon. We have still a lot to learn and to read and to see. How do they read Song of Songs, both of them? Not to mention that since Songs of Songs was written about 3,000 years before our time, the King of Solomon, generations of poets and sages tried to decode this language.
Thanks.
So, friends, what would you like to say at this moment? Fernando,
You gave us a lot already. It is beautiful, and maybe another time you could maybe expand this topic because we have some questions and ideas, and it would be nice to read some of these writings maybe.
of Rabbi Akiva and Philons about Song of Songs. This is what you mean?
Yes, and Hehalot literature as
And
well.
Hechalot,
So-
yes, I will bring it. Yes, I will bring it, and I hope that in this close future, I would like to bring those texts, and there's it's very sensitive. It is written in Hebrew, but the language is very rich and very how do you say, deep and like very fragile to describe all of those encounters with this unseen. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your patience and your sensitivities and your listening.
Thank you for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Eti.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much, and see you next. How do you say, next week on Sunday at the same time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eti. Shalom,
Thank you.
shalom. Thank you, everybody.
Shalom, shalom,
Shalom,
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.